The receipt fluttered to the counter like a white flag of surrender, but HOA Karen wasn't here for peace. Her sausage-like fingers jabbed at the paper, her voice a screech that could curdle milk. 15 cents. You think you can scam me, you lazy little nobody? In the fluorescent-lit chaos of Min's Market, Lillian Gwynn, a 19-year-old cashier, felt her stomach twist. It was her third week on the job, and she'd already learned that customers like HOA Karen, self-proclaimed queen of this small Vietnamese-American enclave, could smell fear. HOA, a towering figure whose floral dress strained at the seams, loomed over the counter, her face a mask of righteous fury. Her sister, Lynn, stood behind her, arms crossed, smirking like a sidekick in a bad sitcom. The two were infamous in the neighborhood for their tirades, but today, they'd picked the wrong target and the wrong day. The trouble started over a simple miscalculation. Lily had rung up Hoas Groceries, a cart overflowing with instant noodles, knockoff energy drinks, and enough frozen dumplings to feed a small army. The total came to $47.85, but HOA swore she'd been overcharged by 15 cents. You think I'm stupid? She bellowed, her voice echoing through the cramped store. I know you're type new girl, probably skimming cash for yourself. Lynn chimed in, her nasally voice cutting through the air. Bad worker. No respect for customers. You should be fired. Lily's hands trembled as she double-checked the receipt. The math was correct. The discount on the noodles had been applied. But HOA wasn't interested in facts. She wanted a fight. I'm calling your manager, she declared, pulling out her phone with the confidence of someone who'd done this 100 times. Lily's heart sank. Mr. Min, her boss, was in the back, and she knew he'd side with the customer to avoid a scene. The sisters' eyes gleamed with triumph, sensing blood in the water. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. As HOA ranted, a teenage boy shuffled into the store, his hoodie pulled low. He was Hoa's son, Tuan, a quiet kid who always seemed embarrassed by his mother's antics. He lingered near the candy aisle, pretending not to hear the commotion. Lily caught his eye, and for a moment, she saw a flicker of shame in his expression. It was a look she knew well. Her own mother had once been the loudest voice in the room, before life taught her humility. Fix this now, or I'll make sure everyone knows what a thief you are. HOA snapped, slamming her hand on the counter. A jar of pickled radishes wobbled dangerously. Lily tried to explain, her voice soft but firm. Ma'am, the receipt is correct. The discount. Don't ma'am me. HOA cut her off. You're nothing but a bad worker. Lynn nodded, adding, bet she's stealing from the register. Look at her, all nervous. The other customers in the story, a middle-aged woman with a basket of greens and an elderly man clutching a loaf of bread, shifted uncomfortably. No one dared intervene. Hoas' reputation was a force of nature, like a hurricane that left shattered egos in its wake. Lily's cheeks burned. She wasn't a thief. She worked 10-hour shifts to pay for community college, studying late into the night to become a nurse. But in Hoas' eyes, she was just a target, a nobody to be crushed under the weight of her entitlement. The sisters' words stung, but Lily held her ground. I can get the manager, she said quietly, reaching for the intercom. Before she could press the button, the door chimed, and a new figure entered the scene. Officer Tran, a local cop who often stopped by for coffee. His presence shifted the air in the room. HOA froze mid-rant, her eyes narrowing. Lynn's smirk faltered. Officer Tran, a stocky man with a no-nonsense demeanor, scanned the scene. Everything okay here? He asked, his voice calm but laced with authority. HOA pivoted instantly, her tone morphing into syrupy sweetness. Officer, thank goodness you're here. This girl's trying to scam me out of my money. She waved the receipt like a battle flag. Lynn nodded vigorously, adding, she's a thief. Overcharged us by 15 cents. Lily's heart raced, but she stayed composed. I didn't overcharge them, sir. I can show you the receipt and the system. She handed over the crumpled paper, her hands steady despite the knot in her chest. Officer Tran glanced at it, then at HOA, whose face was now a mix of indignation and unease. Let's see, Tran said, pulling out a small scanner from his belt. Min's Market had recently installed a digital inventory system, and every transaction was logged. He scanned the barcode on the receipt, and within seconds, the truth flashed on his device. $47.85, correct to the penny. Looks fine to me, he said, his tone neutral but firm. No overcharge. Hoa's face twisted, her lips pursing like she'd swallowed a lemon. That's impossible, she sputtered. Your system's wrong. I know what I paid. Lynn jumped in, her voice shrill. This is a cover-up. You're all in on it. The accusation hung in the air, absurd and desperate. The other customers exchanged glances, their discomfort turning to curiosity. Tuan, still by the candy aisle, looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Officer Tran raised an eyebrow. Ma'am, I suggest you calm down. The system doesn't lie. But HOA wasn't done. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a venomous hiss. You think you can protect this little thief? I'll have your badge for this. That was her mistake. Threatening a cop in front of witnesses was a step too far, even for HOA. Tran's expression hardened. Step back, ma'am, he said, his hand resting lightly on his radio. Let's keep this civil. But HOA, fueled by years of unchecked entitlement, didn't listen. She jabbed a finger at Tran, her voice rising to a screech. You're all corrupt. I'm calling my lawyer. Lynn, sensing the tide turning, tried to tug her sister's arm. Hoa, let's go, she muttered. But HOA shook her off, too far gone in her rage. What happened next was a blur. HOA reached into her purse, pulling out a wad of receipts and loose change, as if to prove her point. But in her frenzy, something else slipped out, a small, unmarked baggie of white powder. It hit the counter with a soft thud, and the store went silent. Lily's eyes widened. The other customers gasped. Tuan's face paled, his hands frozen mid-reach for a candy bar. Officer Tran's gaze locked onto the baggie. Ma'am, he said, his voice now deadly serious, I'm going to need you to stay right there. He radioed for backup, his eyes never leaving HOA. She stammered, her bravado crumbling. That's not mine. Someone planted it. Lynn, panicking, backed away, muttering, I didn't know. I swear. Lily stood frozen, her mind racing. She'd heard rumors about Hoa shady deals, late-night arguments in the neighborhood, but she'd never imagined this. The sisters' reign of terror was unraveling before her eyes, and all it took was 15 cents to set it in motion. Backup arrived within minutes. 2 more officers entered, and Hoa's protests grew louder, more frantic. You can't do this. I'm a mother, she screamed as Tran cuffed her hands. Lynn, sobbing, tried to plead her case, but the officers weren't listening. Tuan stood by the door, his eyes fixed on the floor, tears streaking his face. Lily wanted to say something to him, to tell him it wasn't his fault, but the words wouldn't come. As the officers led HOA and Lynn out to the patrol car, the store erupted in whispers. The middle-aged woman with the basket shook her head. Karma's real, she muttered. The elderly man nodded, adding, about time someone stood up to them. Lily exhaled, her hands still shaking. Mr. Min emerged from the back, his face a mix of shock and relief. You okay, Lily? He asked. She nodded, though her heart was still pounding. Good job staying calm, he said, clapping her shoulder. You handled that better than I would have. The rest of the day passed in a haze. Customers came and went, some offering Lily quiet words of support, others gossiping about Hoa's arrest. By closing time, the story had spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. HOA and Lynn, it turned out, had been under investigation for months. The baggie was just the tip of the iceberg, a small piece of evidence in a larger case involving illegal distribution. The sisters' empire of intimidation was over, brought down by their own arrogance and a 15-cent dispute. Lily locked up the store that night, the weight of the day settling on her shoulders. She thought of Tuan, of the shame in his eyes, and hoped he'd find a way to move forward. She thought of her own dreams, of the long road to becoming a nurse, and felt a quiet resolve. HOA had called her a bad worker, but Lily knew better. She was strong, stronger than the sisters who tried to break her. As she walked home under the streetlights, The receipt from the day's chaos still tucked in her pocket, Lily smiled. Sometimes, the smallest battles like 15 cents could spark the biggest victories. And for HOA Karen and her sister, the price of their pride was far more than they'd ever imagined.